I'm heartbroken by this. Gun crime and murders via guns have nearly doubled over the past year. We were up and working early this morning, and we checked in with the police. And last night, I believe there were at least 3 separate shootings, which included multiple victims. We've given back a generation of progress on gun crimes. We're frankly back to where we were in the bad old days of the crack epidemic. This is truly a crisis, and we need to come together as a community and find solutions.
What are those solutions? What do you think?
Well, actually, we're going to be implementing some changes right away. I believe literally a week from today, the police department will redeploy some of its resources. So we're pulling people out from behind some desks and getting them into patrol cars. So we'll have a greater police presence on the streets. I think at this point, there's probably a consensus on City Hall around investing in violence prevention. So the Office of Violence Prevention, I suspect we're going to be looking to beef up. And I think between the 2 sides of the coin, on the one hand, having more police on the streets, and on the other hand, really investing in programs that focus on prevention, will begin to bend the curve in the right direction. I also think that as a community, we need to come together and make it clear that there's no place for violence in Portland. That's not who we are, and we need to reaffirm that message every day.
So, you talk about prevention, and the role of GVRT was prevention, right?
Yeah.
That's in the name. So were you following that story, when they were dissolved, and what were your thoughts when that happened?
Sure, I was following. Of course, I followed the issue. It was very important. I was not on council at the time, so I didn't get to vote there. And I try not to live in the past. I try to keep us focused in on the future. And so one of the things I'm really concerned about and really focused on is bringing my colleagues and the community together to figure out new strategies for preventing gun violence. I think that we need to have a multi-pronged gun strategy, one which both focuses in on enforcement, especially on issues surrounding guns. We need to have cops at the table. At the same time, as soon as a trigger has been pulled, it's far too late. And that's why I think we need to focus in on prevention programs, something which is remarkably effective, for example, and this is what I think some of the things that the Office of Violence Prevention can help us with, is to go and visit people who've been injured by gun violence while they're in the hospital and begin to kind of short circuit the cycle of violence that I think is driving a lot of the shooting that we see right now. As we move towards the summer and hopefully COVID moves into the past, I look forward to beefing up both employment and recreation opportunities for youth. We've discovered that has been enormously effective, particularly in Portland, in driving down violence. And then I really want to help sponsor a community conversation about what we need to do in order to make our streets safe.
I respect that, not looking to the past and not focusing on the past, but what can you do now? I mean, these are the things that you're talking about. And again, this obviously doesn't rest on your shoulder, totally on your shoulders, but the things that you're talking about are very idealistic. And I think a lot of people would agree that they're good things, but they're things that are going to take time. And this issue is, as you know, it's happening every night, right?
Yeah.
And innocent people, I've talked to a lot of innocent people who have had their homes hit, their cars hit, who are worried that the stray bullet, they're going to be the next target for that stray bullet. And some people have been. So what do you do now, like tonight, right?
Sure. Well, absolutely. In terms of what we can do tonight, I think, again, as a community, is to double down on the message of peace and rejection of violence. A week from today, we really will be deploying our police forces differently. So there'll be more cops on the streets, and that will make a big difference. And then after that, we get into some of the medium and long-term strategies. We will, even as recently as I think tomorrow, we might have at least a draft of the police budget before us. And I'll be picking through that to figure out which pieces of the Bureau that we need to grow or shrink in order to reduce the violence that we see. Unfortunately, there is not a single switch that we can flip to fix this. You know, it took a pandemic and an economic crisis and about a year to get into this problem. We don't have a year to get out of it, but you know, we need to, the way to get out of this is to begin working, you know, every day with focus and determination and an open heart to try to heal the community. And this is what I think we're at, is that you know, gun violence is truly contagious. That's one of the things that's sort of driving this dynamic, is one shooting leads to another shooting, which leads to another shooting. As a community, we need to come together and, number one, recognize that, you know, violence is as contagious as any virus. And then I think we also need to come together as a community and look at ourselves to see what we can do to disrupt these cycles of violence. I mean, I think that's what we can do as individuals. Is if you see a situation escalating, please call 911, which we help supervise, or the non-emergency number 311 to try to get some help on the scene to de-escalate a situation. If you are personally comfortable when you see something escalate, to intervene, please do, but also please stay safe. That's the most important thing. And then I think, you know, we have some hard work as a community to make it clear that Portland is a violence-free zone, or at least that should be our aspiration.
When you talk to the police about this, do they talk to you about it being a gang issue? Because I have heard from officers I've interviewed that some of this is gang related. So
sure, or it's a young male problem, which is what a lot of gun violence is everywhere. You know, young people, for lots of different reasons, often it's a lack of opportunity, lack of stuff to do, fall into these traps. So I think we need to move away from that, or we need to recognize that and figure out how to intervene. I think here in Portland, one of the things we're trying to do is to look beyond sort of labels around gangs and whatnot, and try to really see these people as people. Like, many of them are literally children, and that's probably the right framework. I think the other insight and innovation we can do as a community is to look at gun violence as a public health problem as opposed to a crime problem. Many of these people, as we mentioned before, are literally children, and we should you know, reach out and nurture them. Obviously hold them accountable when something bad happens, but prevention is the best medicine. That's why I think we really need to take a look at how we're serving our youth, especially our BIPOC youth, and connect them to jobs, educational opportunities, and recreational opportunities. And one of the insidious things about the COVID crisis is that it cuts you off from a job, it cuts you off from school, and it cuts you off from recreation. And when those things go away, you know, violence and poison seeps in. So I think we're well on the way of healing here in Portland from the COVID crisis. So I'm confident this is going to get better, both because that virus is beginning to recede into the past, and because I think we've gotten much smarter. You know, this has been a traumatizing year for the city, but through trauma often comes growth. I think one of the things that we realize or have learned from the COVID crisis is that we need to take better care of ourselves and our community. There's a lot of damage out there right now, I recognize, but the healing begins today.
okay, so I want to make sure I'm clear on what you think has caused this spike, COVID, and what else?
At least three things. First, we have COVID, which has cut people off from economic opportunity. COVID has also cut people off from educational opportunities. It's cut people off from employment opportunities, if I haven't said that also. And then you have to recognize the very nature of violence, which is it is literally contagious. So one of the things that we really need to do is to develop relationships and systems and programs that reach in and allow us to break the cycles of violence that we see. So we're going to need to get people back on the streets and talking to young people and diverting them away from a life of crime and into a path towards opportunity. I think that we need to do a better job listening. A lot of pain, often violence is an expression of pain. And one of the things I think we need to do is work with our communities that have been through trauma to help them heal and process pain in a way that doesn't boil down to lashing out. And, I think we need to build stronger systems. There's, as everyone knows, our police department is, I believe, the smallest it's been since 1991 or 1992. And kind of coincidentally, our crime rate is back basically where it was in 1991 or 1992. Maybe those two things are connected. And at the same time, I think that we need to, develop systems and services that meet the 21st century, because it's not, the good news is it's not 1991 anymore. It's 2021, and one of our obligations as public servants and as a community is to reinvent government in every generation and every decade to meet the challenges of the moment. Frankly, we haven't really done that today. But that's the work of being on council, and that's the work of building a community. And I have to tell you, despite the challenges, I have never been more optimistic about Portland than I am today. I see thousands of Portlanders come out, cleaning streets, taking care of their neighbors, reinventing businesses for 2021. I know it may be the dead of winter now, but there is a spring coming, and that spring is going to be really awesome.
What are you hearing from leaders in the police department about the staffing issue? You're talking about, go ahead.
Oh, absolutely. I make a point of speaking with our public safety community every day, and they are very clear in their analysis. They do not have enough bodies to do the job that they are expected to do. Like, we have minimum staffing levels for each shift of a police patrol. And on too many days, they literally don't have enough people on duty to meet the basic needs of the city. And that's something they're talking to us very clearly about. There's no ambiguity about where their position is. At the same time, we have other community members who tell us we'd like to solve these problems without expanding the police department. And frankly, we are also in an unheralded economic crisis. So the dollars out there for hiring new staff or even keeping the staff we have right now are quite tight. I think what we're going to have to do here is an all of the above strategy. We're going to have to reinvent the way we do policing, partly so we can get as many people as many sworn police officers as possible, patrolling our streets and focusing in on the core crimes that we care about. At the same time, we got to focus in on prevention. If we can keep that trigger from being pulled in the first place, that's what success really looks like. And that's what I want to get us to do. And that's going to mean lots of things. I think that many of the tasks that are currently being done by the police department will ultimately be done by non-sworn officers or by community programs. At the same time, I think there is no question that on most nights, we do not have nearly enough cops on the ground out there, literally responding to 911 calls. I'm your commissioner for 911, and I'll tell you, we get maybe 30,000 calls a month. So it's not a surprise to me that we don't have enough bodies out there, either in the fire department or the police department, to respond to all these calls. And that's going to mean we have to reorganize policing, and also we need to take care of our community in a better way so that we don't face 30,000 911 calls, every 30 days. It's literally bigger than we can handle as a city. But as we become healthier as a city, I know those 911 calls are going to go down. As we become more creative as a city, we'll figure out ways to respond to people's needs that don't boil down to calling the cops. And there's very exciting work being done. For example, we're very close to launching our street response teams. Right now, probably 51% of the police calls that are out there are essentially for homelessness issues. And we all know that dynamic. Someone who lives on the street is having a mental health crisis. We are about to launch our street response team. So instead of sending out a cop on those calls, we'll send out a social worker and someone who's trained in crisis de-escalation. And instead of, when those people arrive on the scene, instead of taking the homeless person to jail or telling them to move along, they'll try to connect them with services. That'll create some bandwidth in our police department, or at least with our police staffing. And it also is better public service and ultimately is also cheaper too. So we have programs like that that we're very excited about. We also have our PS3 program, which are basically unarmed officers. We're looking very hard at how we can get them out there, making our community safe. I'm very also excited about our community safety program, which lives over in the Office of Civic Life. We need those folks more than ever. They are basically community organizers who will come to your neighborhood or your home and help you strategize with your neighbors about how to keep everybody safe and engaged. All of these things are moving along, plus there are initiatives we haven't even had a chance to talk about. The mayor has several task forces which are working on developing integrated strategies to policing better. And we're beginning those discussions, or not even beginning, those discussions are actually well underway. We should have new plans to roll out in a matter of weeks, I hope.
The street response program, does that launch? I know they're training right now. Does that launch the first or second week of February?
I think it's the second week of February. We're very close.
I think it's the 15th. And one more question for you. With these staffing issues, you'd mentioned that they're going to have more officers on the streets starting next week, correct?
I believe the 4th is when our when we reorganize things and pull people out from behind the desk and get them in cars.
What are the issues surrounding that you're hearing from the police department?
Well, here's what here's the reality. We don't have enough cops out there. So we need to do everything we can to move as many police officers as we can out onto the streets. It's absolutely true. One of the things that we're losing right here are specialty units, things like traffic patrol, the canine units. Literally, the city's gotten in trouble because, or the police bureau has gotten into trouble because sometimes they fall behind on paperwork, and paperwork and policing is very, very important. And these are problems. And frankly, a lot of the back office stuff that we're doing right now is trying to find other people in the city, whether they're other city employees or maybe in some cases even volunteers that can come and pick up some of the tasks that historically the police have done. But this is something which every commissioner is committed to. So we're all looking internally to see how we can do better. So my people over at 911 are doing amazing work. Environmental services and water are stepping up to figure out how to manage houselessness on some public lands. But Commissioner Hardesty is obviously a trailblazer in their arena of public safety. Dan Ryan and Commissioner Rubio too. This is the bread and butter of what we do every day. We know that if we don't get this right, we will have failed as a council, and we are not here.
I don't think you mentioned this, but are you guys going to hire more police?
I expect to see the draft police budget tomorrow, and we'll see what's in there. The mayor has basically asked most bureaus to take a 5% cut, including ours, at water and environmental services and 911. I assume that applies to the police bureau too, but I do not know how they have how they are going to meet those cuts.
You think we need
I hope they can find efficiencies, because I hear you. I think these folks need the bodies that they have. We have to go back literally a generation for Portland to have a police department smaller than we have today. And I aspire for a day when Portland doesn't need a police department, but that is not today.